Welcome, curious minds, to a very special deep dive. Today, we are intentionally stepping away from the logic gates, the complex architecture diagrams and
Yeah.
the endless pull request queues. We're going to focus entirely on something that I think fundamentally powers your professional life.
What's that?
It's you.
Yeah.
You and your confidence in communicating clearly in English.
That's a really crucial shift in focus. I mean, for so many of you working in these technical, really fast-paced environments like software development, using English every day is, well, it's absolutely necessary.
It's the default.
It is. But we also understand that it can be a significant and often sort of hidden source of anxiety.
Oh, absolutely. That feeling of hesitation, right before you have to speak in a morning stand-up.
Yes, or that slight rush of fear when you need to type a complex update in an email. That nervousness about making a mistake is something we hear about constantly.
And that hesitation is precisely what we want to talk about today. Our mission really is to transform that feeling. I want you to think of this deep dive as a calm, a cozy, and a profoundly supportive listening guide.
I like that, a listening guide.
Yeah. It's designed specifically for learners who want to feel more capable, more confident, and just less anxious about those inevitable errors that happen when you're using a language in real time.
Right. We're not chasing perfection.
No, not at all. We're targeting clarity and confidence, not some mythical level of perfect grammar.
And we are particularly pleased to be able to share this deep dive with you today as part of the supportive atmosphere of Fluent Mindcast. The whole essence of this approach is, it's simple. We're focused on practical professional communication.
Right.
So we're going to avoid the complex grammar jargon and instead focus really heavily on just noticing patterns, recognizing the natural rhythm, and understanding the intonation of native speech.
And the examples we use will be simple, slow, and meticulously clear, all tailored precisely to the developer workplace. Because we've all been there, right? That slight uncertainty in choosing the right verb tense, or the dilemma of which are preposition to use.
Or maybe just that persistent feeling that your vocabulary doesn't sound, quite sophisticated enough.
Yes, exactly. So we've analyzed the most common, the most frequently made mistakes, those small habits that can subtly undermine your confidence, and we are going to offer gentle, practical, and highly repeatable ways to correct them.
And I think it's important to start with a core idea, a fundamental perspective, really.
Okay.
Mistakes are absolutely not failures.
Yeah.
Mistakes are not failures. They are the most normal and, frankly, the most valuable part of the learning process. If you're making mistakes, it means you're actively communicating. It means you're stretching your linguistic comfort zone, and that is already a massive, measurable step forward.
It's evidence of effort.
Exactly. So we'll walk through these common workplace situations step by step, and we'll maintain a slow, measured pace that's really designed for listening practice, for deep absorption, and for reflection.
So let's begin where the greatest struggles often lie. And that's in the mental game.
The psychology of it all.
Yeah. We need to build a rock-solid foundation of confidence before we even look at a single grammar point.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this first point, because from our source material and all the feedback we get, this is arguably the single most critical error you can make.
And it has nothing to do with grammar.
Nothing at all to do with whether you use a past participle correctly.
It's that emotional roadblock, the thing that acts like a brake on your progress.
Right. The biggest roadblock. Being afraid of making mistakes. And I see this fear magnified in highly technical fields like software development.
Why do you think that is?
Well, you live in a world where accuracy, logic, and precision are the air you breathe.
Everything has to be exact.
Exactly. So the thought process often goes something like, if I make a mistake in English, a language skill, it might somehow undermine the listener's perception of my technical expertise, which is precise.
Right. They'll think I'm sloppy with my code if I'm sloppy with my English.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
But that connection is simply not true in a professional environment.
No. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the sources are very clear and I think very comforting on this.
Okay.
This fear. It slows down your progress and reduces your overall fluency more profoundly than any actual grammar error ever could.
That's a powerful statement.
Think about the flow of a meeting. When you hesitate, when you are searching for the perfect word or the perfectly conjugated verb,
You stop.
you stop, you introduce an unnatural pause, you lose the rhythm of the conversation, and that lack of flow actually makes you harder to understand than if you had just used a slightly incorrect tense quickly and clearly.
And here's where it gets really interesting, and I think where we need to find some deep comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Native speakers make mistakes all the time.
Every single day.
Every day.
Yeah.
In every meeting. We use the wrong word. It's a name for it, malapropism. We trail off sentences. We break rules of subject-verb agreement, especially when we're speaking casually or quickly.
Oh, constantly. We're always fixing ourselves mid-sentence. You'll probably hear us do it during this very conversation.
I'm sure we will.
The core truth here is that in the professional world, and specifically in development teams, communication matters far more than perfection.
Right.
Your colleagues are focused on the content, the technical solution, the status update, the bug report. They are not acting as grammarians.
They just need the information.
They just need the information. And that realization is absolutely essential for dismantling the fear. When you release that pressure to be perfect, you give yourself the mental space to simply be clear.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to, I think, the core insight from all our material on this.
Okay, what's that?
Kindness toward oneself is truly one of the most powerful learning tools you possess.
That's so important.
Imagine you're reviewing code. You wouldn't delete the whole file because of one small bug, would you?
Of course not.
No. You would fix the bug gently and move on. You have to apply that same standard of compassion to your language learning.
That's a great analogy.
When you're relaxed, your brain has much more capacity to retrieve the correct phrase or structure. Tension, on the other hand, acts like emotional friction. It locks that knowledge away.
So the goal is to make your English sound natural.
And that happens when you're relaxed.
Right. Now, that fear of making a single error often leads directly to the second major psychological barrier we see.
Which is?
Debunking the perfection myth. You don't need perfect English to speak. I know so many listeners feel they have to reach some specific high academic level, a C1 or C2, before they can confidently contribute to a meeting.
Or write a critical document.
Yes. And that belief just creates unnecessary crushing pressure.
We really have to offer a necessary perspective here. We have to remember that English is a truly global language.
It's not owned by any one country.
Not at all. It's spoken with countless accents, rhythms, and structural styles. From the unique cadence of a native speaker in Dublin to the specialized professional English used in a tech hub in Bangalore.
So the standard you might be chasing.
The perfect, accent-free, grammatically flawless English.
It doesn't exist.
It simply does not exist as a single, consistent, real-world benchmark.
And this is a fantastic point, one that should provide real relief. Here's a curious fact that should really cement this idea for you.
Mm-hmm.
Most English conversations that happen worldwide, they happen between non-native speakers.
That's huge. Think about that for a moment.
Right. When you are talking to a distributed team member in Berlin who is collaborating with a client in Seoul, and you're based in Brazil.
It's likely none of you are native English speakers.
Exactly. Yet you are coordinating complex projects perfectly well.
So what this means in practice is that clarity and friendliness are prioritized vastly over perfect grammar. If your technical message is clear, polite, and efficient, you have succeeded. Your entire goal is simply to convey technical information accurately and to build positive, functioning working relationships.
And that requires crystal clear clarity and a pleasant tone, not flawless conjugation.
Right.
So what does this all mean for daily practice? This is the actionable encouragement we want to offer, and we'll say it slowly so you can really absorb it.
Okay.
Speaking a little every day builds fluency faster than silent studying. English improves when it's used, when it's practiced, when it's visible in public, not when it's hidden away in grammar books or silent practice apps.
It's like muscle.
It's exactly like a muscle.
Yeah.
Start small, accept the error as evidence of learning, and just keep the momentum moving forward.
Use it or lose it, as they say. Consistent, gentle use of the language, even if it's just summarizing a pull request out loud to yourself, is the only way to form these positive linguistic habits.
Right.
Do not wait for perfection. Let the use of the language be the path to improvement.
Okay, let's move now into the nuts and bolts of daily, high-frequency communication. We'll start with the heart of team connection, the stand-up meeting.
Right. The daily ritual.
This is where we often see the first big grammatical pitfall. It's an overuse of one particular tense.
And that is overusing the present continuous, the feel of permanence.
Yes.
This is an incredibly understandable confusion, really. The present continuous using that ing form, like I am working or the system is running.
It feels very flexible.
It does. It feels safe because it describes what's happening right now in this moment. So for learners, it often feels easier than remembering when to shift to the more basic, simple present tense.
But here's the critical distinction in English.
Hmm.
Our language relies so heavily on the simple present for habits, facts, and routines.
All those stable things.
Exactly. So describing your standard day-to-day work, your usual responsibilities, or a feature's routine behavior using the continuous tense, it sounds slightly unusual to a native ear.
It does. It implies the action is temporary. So let's talk about the why. This is the linguistic curiosity here. English speakers often subconsciously choose their tense based on how permanent or stable something feels.
That's a great way to put it.
If an action is stable, regular, expected, or routine, like your job, your daily commitment, or a static fact about the system, we use the simple present. The more stable the action, the simpler the tense.
And using the continuous tense suggests what?
It suggests the action is temporary. Something happening only this week or only at this very moment. It's not a permanent state.
Okay, let's hear that distinction in a developer stand-up context. We'll repeat these phrases slowly so you can hear the difference.
So imagine you're describing your usual stable role or a daily habit.
Here's the mistake example, overusing the continuous. I am attending the QA meetings every Tuesday.
Now, listen to the difference when we switch to the natural, routine-based simple present. Listen for that steady, calm rhythm that signals regularity.
The corrected example. I attend the QA meetings every Tuesday.
It's subtle, but it's there.
It really is. Let's try another one. Describing a system's reliability, which is a fixed fact about its behavior.
The mistake might sound like, the logging service is crashing often when traffic is high.
Which, as you said, sounds like a temporary issue, even if it happens often.
Exactly. But the corrected version signals a regular recurring pattern. The logging service crashes often when traffic is high.
See, that sounds more like a known issue, a fact.
Mm-hmm. Or let's try one more, describing your commitment to a task.
The mistake. I am working on the database refactor every morning this month.
And the corrected, more natural routine. I work on the database refactor every morning this month.
It feels more solid somehow.
It does.
So we invite you, the listener, to maybe pause now, listen again to those contrasting phrases, and focus specifically on the steady, simple beat of the simple present tense.
It signals permanence, it signals regularity, and it just sounds reliable in professional contexts.
Try repeating that corrected phrase slowly. I work on the database refactor.
Good. Now, let's pivot gently to another core structure confusion. Okay. This one happens constantly when you're discussing the team or the user base. It's the plural puzzle, saying people is instead of people are.
Oh, this is such a common one.
Yeah.
It's an almost inevitable mistake, and it happens because of the way the word looks.
Right. There's no S on the end.
Exactly. People doesn't end in an S. So our brains, which are trained by other common nouns, want to treat it as singular.
So you naturally want to pair it with the singular verb is.
It's completely logical, but it just happens to break the English rule.
The linguistic detail here is that people is what we call an irregular plural form. It already means more than one person, so it always takes a plural verb.
It always goes with are or were.
Always. And because it's such a high-frequency word, the error stands out immediately.
And if we look a little deeper into the nuance, this is why the mistake is so sticky for professionals.
Go on.
In English, we have several collective nouns like team, staff, company, crew. And these often do take the singular verb because they function as a single unit. For example, the QA team is ready to merge.
Ah, I see. So that reinforces the confusion.
Exactly. But people is the exception. It focuses on the individuals within the group, not the single group concept.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's apply this in a context where you're observing a team or referring to stakeholders. Listen carefully for that jarring sound when the singular verb is used.
Here's the mistake example from a team observation. The people in the quality assurance team is testing the merge request.
Now listen to the clear expected plural agreement. It just feels smoother and more accurate.
Corrected example. The people in the quality assurance team are testing the merge request.
Much better.
Let's try a longer statement. Maybe discussing users in a planning meeting.
The mistake might be, the people who use this feature is providing a lot of confusing feedback.
And the corrected version. The people who use this feature are providing a lot of confusing feedback.
Right.
And we want to reassure you. The path to correcting this is simply increased exposure.
Listening.
Yes, listening. The more you listen to natural spoken English, your ears will start catching this pattern automatically, without you needing to think of the grammatical rule.
It'll just start to sound right.
It will just sound correct to pair people with are.
Okay, moving on to perhaps the most famous and persistent mistake in English worldwide.
I think I know which one you mean.
It's the tiny s, forgetting the s in the third person singular.
The third person is the linguistic equivalent of a missing semicolon, often dropped, but, important for polish.
Chuckles. That's a good way to put it.
Everyone learns the rule early on. He, she, it takes an s in the simple present. He works. She codes. It crashes.
But when you're speaking quickly or under pressure or you're really focusing on the technical concept,
And your brain just drops it.
it does. Your brain instinctively prioritizes meaning transfer and it dumps that small, structurally unnecessary s.
This tendency speaks directly to the developer mindset, I think.
How so? Well, developers often value functionality over syntactic redundancy. That tiny fees might feel like unnecessary syntax when the meaning is already perfectly clear.
Right. The listener knows exactly who or what you're talking about, with or without the V's.
That is precisely the mood of the problem. However, and this is a big however, here's the contrast. Though the letter is small, native speakers notice this omission immediately. It breaks the rhythmic expectation of the language.
It creates a subtle but noticeable imbalance in the sentence's structure.
Yes.
Let's model this using system descriptions, which are very frequent in developer conversations. Listen for the lack of rhythm in the mistake.
Okay, here's the mistake example, describing a system. The main API often return null values without logging the error.
Now listen to how the addition of the E's adds a subtle, smooth rhythm. It indicates that single entity, the API, performing a routine action. This is the expected, standard, professional sound.
Corrected example. The main API often returns null values without logging the error.
Hear that? Returns. It just flows better. It does.
Let's do another example, describing what the project manager, the PM, does routinely.
The mistake. Our PM always send the deployment checklist the day before.
And the corrected version? Our PM always sends the deployment checklist the day before.
Sense.
The good news here is that this is a habit issue, not a knowledge issue. You know the rule.
Right.
The habit improves naturally with conscious repetition and exposure. Our tip for practice here is to just speak slowly and listen intently to yourself at first.
Don't rush.
Don't rush the sentence when you refer to the system or he or she. Give yourself time for this tiny letter to become a fully ingrained part of your natural speaking rhythm.
And let's just emphasize that point again. If you're describing a bug, say it slowly. The application crashes. If you're describing a colleague, say it slowly. She writes clean code. Building that slow, deliberate rhythm is the key.
Okay, so now we move from those core structural issues in status reporting to the more nuanced world of vocabulary and accurate phrasing.
Which is crucial when you're in the middle of a complex technical discussion or a code review.
Absolutely. And we'll start with a classic difficulty that causes endless confusion for nearly every learner.
Let me guess. Make and do.
You got it. The classic confusion. Mixing up make and do. This is extremely critical when you're describing tasks, planning, obligations, or decision-making in meetings.
And the deep difficulty here comes from the fact that in so many languages, a single verb covers both concepts.
Right, the concept of creation and the concept of action.
And this lack of a clear distinction in a learner's native language makes it frustrating at first because, as our sources say, the English rules for these are not always based on visible logic.
Not at all. They're based on fixed combinations we call collocations, words that just go together.
So let's provide the general rule distinction, nice and slow, so it can be absorbed.
Okay, so do is typically used for tasks, activities, obligations, and general work.
Like do homework, do research.
Exactly. Do a favor. Do a task.
And make.
Make is used for creating, producing, or constructing something, either tangible or conceptual.
So make a decision, make a plan.
Make dinner, make an improvement.
Right.
And the curiosity here is essential to understand. Native speakers learn these combinations by ear, through habit, not by applying explicit rules.
We don't have a list in our heads.
Not at all. We learn fixed expressions like make a decision or do your best simply because it sounds right to us after years and years of repetition.
So trying to memorize massive grammar lists is
ineffective. It really is. You have to absorb the sound and the feel of the phrase as a single unit.
So patience and dedicated repetition, focused on the full phrases, are far more effective than just memorizing words.
Absolutely. Let's hear a couple of highly specific examples where these verbs clash in a professional project environment.
Okay, imagine discussing a project deadline.
The mistake might be, we need to make an effort to meet the deadline.
Now that's interesting because it's understandable, but make an effort is actually a correct collocation. Let's find a clearer example. That shows how tricky these are.
You're right, good catch. That one is a set phrase. Let's focus on a more direct task.
Okay, tasking.
Mistake example. I need to make the database cleanup before the deployment.
Right. Cleanup is an activity.
It's a task. So the corrected version is, I need to do the database cleanup before the deployment.
That's clear.
Now let's try creating strategy.
Mistake example. The architects must do a major decision on the cloud provider.
A decision is something you create. It's a product of thought.
Exactly. So, the architects must make a major decision on the cloud provider.
Let's focus on one specific pair that is very common in your work.
Right.
We do research.
Right.
We make a configuration change. We do penetration testing.
Right.
We make a recommendation.
Let's repeat that slowly for maximum absorption. We do research.
We make a configuration change.
We do penetration testing.
We make a recommendation.
By focusing on these specific repeated pairings, your brain starts to build those fixed habits.
And that's what makes your English sound more natural and reliable.
Okay, next up, we're going to tackle a word that is a complete false friend for many speakers.
I know this one. It leads to a lot of communication confusion.
It does. The false friend. Using actually in the wrong way. And this pops up frequently when developers respond to feedback or maybe clarify a bug during a code review.
The trap here is that actually sounds identical to words in languages like Spanish or French or German that simply mean currently or in fact or in reality.
But in English, actually is specifically used to signal a correction of previous information, to express surprise, or to add strong, often surprising emphasis.
And here's the professional warning that is so vital. Overusing actually, especially when you start a sentence with it in response to feedback, can inadvertently make you sound defensive.
Or argumentative.
Yes, or like you're contradicting the listener. It disrupts the subtlety and the politeness that's expected in professional exchanges.
Okay, let's look at how that negative tone can unintentionally emerge. Imagine a manager asks you if you've completed a task.
So the mistake example, if you're just trying to give a simple affirmation, might be, actually, I finished the testing yesterday.
And if the listener wasn't assuming otherwise, that sounds a bit sharp. It sounds like you're correcting their implied lack of knowledge.
Which can be seen as slightly aggressive.
Right. Now, here's where actually is used correctly, to clearly correct a stated assumption or add surprising nuance. Notice the context of surprise.
The corrected example would be something like, I thought the pull request was blocked, but I checked the logs, and actually, I finished the testing yesterday.
See, the word there corrects the expectation that it was blocked.
Exactly. Or to express genuine, unexpected surprise about performance.
Like, the new compiler is running much faster than we expected. Actually, it reduced the overall build time by 30%, not 10%.
Right. So if you simply want to state a fact without any contradiction, it's better to use neutral phrases.
Like,
in fact, or to confirm, or simply, yes, I finished the testing yesterday.
So the actionable step here is to really focus on absorbing when native speakers use it to add that specific nuance of correction or surprise.
And not just as a general filler word. Be aware of the subtle negative weight it can carry in a face-to-face interaction.
We turn now to a very natural stage of language learning that requires conscious effort to overcome.
The translation trap, translating expressions word for word.
Yes. Direct translation is how we all start with new vocabulary. We think of the complete structure in our native language.
And then just swap the individual words for the English equivalents.
But, as our sources note, this often causes expressions to lose their meaning or just sound highly unusual because the underlying logical structure of English is different.
The classic example you mentioned earlier is age.
Right. If you translate literally from a language like Spanish or French, you might say, I have 30 years.
Which just sounds unusual in English. We rely on the fixed expression, I am 30 years old. We use the verb to be for age.
But this translation trap goes far beyond age. It affects fixed phrases describing status, feelings, attributes.
Everything. For instance, in many languages, you have hunger or you have cold.
But in English, we use the verb to be, I am hungry and I am cold.
Or consider the concept of difficulty. In some languages, you might say a task is heavy.
If you translate that directly, this coding task is heavy.
It doesn't quite work. In English, we would say this coding task is difficult or complex or challenging. The literal translation misses the mark completely.
So the learning tip here is a powerful one, and it has to be applied consistently.
Which is?
Focus relentlessly on absorbing full, complete phrases rather than individual words. When you hear a native speaker describing their status or their age or the complexity of a project, try to absorb the full structure they use as a single unit.
Letting go of that safety net of direct word-for-word translation is a massive step toward true fluency.
It really is. It means accepting that English works on a different internal logic than your native language, and you have to embrace that new, sometimes quirky structure fully.
And our final point in this section addresses absolute clarity in referencing code, systems, and people.
This is a big one for precision.
It is identifying clearly, mixing up he, she, and it.
This is a confusion that arises especially for those whose native languages assign grammatical gender to inanimate objects.
Or use one neutral pronoun for everything.
Right. In English, we're much simpler, but we're also rigid in this simplicity. Objects, systems, ideas, pieces of code, features, they're almost always referred to as the neutral pronoun it.
And the importance of clarity in the developer context is just paramount here. If you're debugging a complex system and you keep referring to the caching layer as she or the database as he, it introduces ambiguity into the conversation.
The listener has to take a microsecond to process whether you meant the system or a person on the team.
Exactly. Precision matters here.
I do understand the confusion completely, though. Sometimes, when developers build a complicated feature, they feel a deep personal connection to it.
Like they've brought a thing to life.
Yes. So anthropomorphizing it with a she or he might feel natural emotionally.
That's a great point about the emotional investment, but professionally, we need that neutral distance for clarity.
Let's look at a common mistake when referencing a new system or feature that is now performing well.
The mistake example might be, I finished the big refactor of the message queue system. She is much faster now.
Now listen to the clear technical reference using the neutral pronoun. This is what's expected for inanimate objects and systems in English documentation and conversation.
The corrected example. I finished the big refactor of the message queue system. It is much faster now.
It's just cleaner.
It is. Or when referencing a bug ticket or an error.
The mistake. The ticket is difficult to replicate, but I think I found him in the logs.
And corrected. The ticket is difficult to replicate, but I think I found it in the logs.
The end goal here is confidence built through precision.
With enough time and focused practice, aligning the correct pronoun with the entity, person, or object, it just becomes instinctive.
And that frees up your cognitive load to focus on the technical complexity of your message rather than the small grammar point.
So we've spent most of our time discussing structure, core grammar, accuracy.
All right, the foundations.
Now let's talk about making your English richer, more engaging, and more expressive.
I like this part.
We'll start with a word that is helpful early on, but needs a gentle retirement as you advance.
Retiring the crutch. Using very too much.
Yes. And we completely understand why learners rely so heavily on very.
It's safe.
It's safe, it's simple, and it's easy to use. It helps you express intensity early on without requiring you to know a huge bank of vocabulary.
And that's perfectly fine. It's productive in the initial stages.
It is. But over-reliance on very makes your speech repetitive and, frankly, less natural and less engaging as you advance your professional capabilities.
It kind of dulls the emotional and technical edge of what you're trying to communicate.
That's a great way to say it. For example, if everything is very important, then...
Nothing is truly critical.
Exactly. This is where we introduce the concept of stronger adjectives. And the fun curiosity here is that the English lexicon is vast. It features hundreds of adjectives created specifically to avoid using very.
They are single words that inherently carry the meaning of very.
Yes, they communicate high intensity immediately.
So instead of saying, I am very tired, which is correct, but, a bit repetitive.
You use the single, punchier word, exhausted.
Instead of very cold.
Freezing. These words are just more memorable and they communicate the intensity more precisely.
Let's apply this directly to the developer environment, especially when you're giving crucial feedback on system performance, risk, or technical constraints.
We want to move from general intensity to technical precision.
Okay, so instead of saying, this bug is very important and needs fixing today,
you can use a stronger, more technical adjective that signals a higher level of risk. This bug is critical or crucial and needs fixing today.
Critical has so much more weight.
It does. How about this one? The new data model is very big and complex.
You could say the new data model is massive or extensive and complex.
Massive paints a much clearer picture. Let's look at performance.
Instead of the function is very slow on startup.
You could say the function is sluggish or delayed on startup.
I like sluggish. It feels more descriptive.
And for complexity.
Instead of the legacy code is very confusing.
Try. The legacy code is opaque or bewildering.
Opaque is a great word for code.
The encouragement we want to offer is not to ban very entirely.
No, of course not.
It still has its place in softer, more casual conversation. The goal here is simply to expand your vocabulary toolkit.
Think of it as trading a blunt instrument for a precise instrument.
That's it. It allows you to choose the exact right word for the exact right intensity, and this targeted practice makes your professional English richer, more precise, and far more engaging for your colleagues.
And remember the measured pace of this exercise. Don't try to memorize a long list overnight.
No.
Start by just integrating 1 or 2 new expressive adjectives per week into your active vocabulary.
Notice when other people use these stronger words in meetings or in documentation.
And then try to mimic them gently in your own speech.
So we have completed our gentle journey through some of the most common high-frequency workplace mistakes.
From the subtle shift in tenses you need in a stand-up to the nuance of using an emphatic word like actually.
To the benefit of adding stronger, more precise adjectives to your vocabulary.
Right.
And we sincerely hope that the repetition and the calm pace have allowed you to truly absorb the sounds and the patterns of these corrected phrases.
And let us reiterate this core professional truth. Clear, simple, and polite English is what is highly valued in real development teams.
No one is grading your grammar in a meeting.
No. They're listening for your technical insight and your clarity of thought.
Noticing and consciously correcting these small, persistent mistakes over time is what makes conversations easier and much more natural.
And crucially, it reduces your cognitive load during those high-pressure moments and significantly increases your overall professional confidence in the long run.
Now, for a final thought for reflection, we want to encourage you to spend a moment and identify which 1 or 2 mistakes we discussed today really resonated with you most deeply. Was it the temptation to overuse the continuous tense for routine actions? Was it mixing up make and do for certain collocations? Or was it realizing the subtle, aggressive weight of the word actually?
Pick just one. Just one. And focus your daily practice for the next week entirely on integrating that single corrected phrase or structural pattern into your speech.
Maybe try to use it 3 times a day.
Exactly. Don't try to fix everything at once. That path leads directly back to the anxiety we talked about at the very start of this deep dive.
Small, consistent, and gentle adjustments are what build true, lasting fluency.
And remind yourself constantly, making a mistake is simply the clearest evidence that you are progressing.
It means you are using the language. You're testing its boundaries.
And use is the ultimate measure of success in professional communication.
I'll leave you with this. The next time you hesitate before speaking, don't focus on the grammar rule. Focus on the single most provocative thought. What critical piece of information is my team missing right now because I am prioritizing perfect grammar over immediate, clear communication?
That's powerful.
The answer is almost always, speak now, speak clearly, and the grammar will follow.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into making your professional English stronger, clearer, and much more confident. If you found this supportive, measured approach helpful, please remember that this calm style is really the foundation of Fluent Mindcast.
It's a safe, supportive space designed specifically for real-life English listening practice for developers.
We look forward to diving deep with you again soon.